marched through the capital calling for an end to high tuition fees. LBC's Lorraine Horgan has the latest.
Back at Parliament Square now, and after quite a heated afternoon, things have calmed down considerably. About an hour ago, students here were smashing down barriers and firing missiles. They were determined to make themselves heard, but even they're unsure if their action today will have any effect.
I'm not expecting tuition fees or any of the issues that may bother me to be fixed today, but it's about showing a presence so people can see that this is an issue and it becomes part of the zeitgeist, really.
I was able to become a lawyer because I got free education, and now they're charging the children $9,000 a year, and I think it's disgraceful.
People do this for years, man. It's just good to see people believe in something still.
The drums are still beating, but for now at least the protest is coming to an end. Lorraine Horgan, LBC at Parliament Square.
The Deputy Prime Minister has told LBC there must be an investigation into claims that a boy could have been killed by a paedophile ring linked to Westminster. Vishamba Mehrotra says he received a call in the 1980s saying his 8-year-old son may have been taken to the Elm Guest House in southwest London. Police are investigating possible murders linked to the property. Nick Clegg has told LBC he can understand why some victims feel they've been ignored.
You can't think of a more serious and grotesque allegation than that. Clearly needs to be looked into. I think it's right, for instance, in other parts of the country that police officers are now under scrutiny and under the magnifying glass for not having acted in Rotherham, for instance.
A former suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann is reportedly going to be questioned again as a witness by Met Police. British expat Robert Murat was released without charge 7 years ago. Scotland Yard hasn't confirmed whether he's going to be interviewed. Shares in Royal Mail have fallen 8% after a fall in pre-tax profits. They're down to £218 million in the 6 months to the end of September. It's blaming online retailer Amazon increasingly using its own network for deliveries. Adrian Bailey, the Labour chairman of the Business Committee, has told Ian MPs are going to look at the service.
Royal Mail, of course, complained that this so-called monopoly, the universal service obligation, which requires them to deliver letters 6 days a week anywhere in the country, is not an obligation that their rivals have, and therefore they are carrying costs which their rivals don't have.
An American pickup artist who's been accused of having sexist attitudes towards women has been banned from entering the UK. Julian Blanc had been planning to hold seminars here but has had his visa application turned down. Home Office Minister Lynn Featherstone says his presence here could have led to an increase in sexual violence and harassment. The family of Formula One driver Jules Bianchi says he is out of an artificial coma but remains critically ill and unconscious. He was involved in a crash at the Japanese Grand Prix last month. A zookeeper is in a serious condition in hospital after being injured by a rhino in Bedfordshire. It happened this morning at Whipsnade Zoo near Dunstable. The zoo says it's investigating what happened. The FTSE 100 has closed down 12 points at 66.96. And LBC weather staying cloudy tonight for London and the southeast. Some showers possible in the west. Lows of 5 Celsius. Rain for Northern Ireland and Wales easing this evening. Mostly dry elsewhere across the UK. Tomorrow largely dry and cloudy and highs of 11 degrees. From Global's Newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Chris Golds in the LBC Travel Centre. Central London is still a mess in the aftermath after this demonstration. You're still crawling on all routes throughout Lambeth, Vauxhall, Victoria and Westminster. The demonstrators have now split up with one group in Parliament Square and another at Buckingham Palace. All the earlier closures have been lifted, but there are still restrictions around Parliament Square, and there are still serious queues on numerous routes, including on Vauxhall Bridge, Victoria Street, Lambeth Bridge Road and Victoria Embankment. The North Circular is queuing on both approaches to the Uxbridge Road in Ealing, where the traffic lights aren't facing properly, and the North Circular is also queuing westbound between Waterworks Corner in Walthamstow and the Cooksferry interchange in Chingford, where lanes closed for emergency repairs. Portsmouth Road in Thames Ditton is now queuing in both directions towards an accident at Giggs Hill Road, and on the M1 northbound that's still closed between junction 15A for Toaster and 18 for Rugby. It's going to be closed until about 10 o'clock this evening for emergency repairs after an accident and a fuel spillage. It's causing massive delays from junction 15 for Northampton and all surrounding routes as well. And on the tubes, the Piccadilly line still has severe delays on the Heathrow and Uxbridge branches, with minor delays on the rest of the line after a signal failure this morning. Keeping you moving in next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoTo Meeting, helping smart businesses meet more and travel less.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard East Coast Trains. Calling at cooked breakfast, vegetarian pasta, oriental wraps, herb ham sandwich, afternoon tea, and finally stopping at award-winning wine and cheeses.
With complimentary food and drink on East Coast trains for our first-class travellers and a brand new food bar in Standard, we're pulling out all the stops to make you feel at home. Next time you travel, enjoy something a little tastier. Book now at eastcoast.co.uk.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Ian Dale at Drive. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
Hello, a very good evening. I'm Ian Dale at Drive, leading Britain's conversation on LBC every weekday between 4 and 8. Coming up over the next hour, it's your chance to put your questions to Ed Balls, the Shadow Chancellor. He's here taking your calls for the next 60 minutes. If you've got questions on any aspect of Labour policy, economic policy, maybe their announcements on immigration yesterday, the number to call 0345 6060 973. But I don't want to lead you. You call in about what you like. Then after 6, we are going to talk about Julian Blanc, the man that the government has banned from this country because he's sexist. Well, what about banning lots of other people who are far more dangerous than Julian Blanc? 6 minutes past 5. It's a pleasure to welcome Ed Balls back into the studio for another edition of Call Ed Balls. You can also watch us live on lbc.co.uk in glorious Technicolor. Ed, welcome.
Hi Ian, I'm actually in a bit of a state of shock at the moment because you've just told me I should change from a BlackBerry to an iPhone after 10 years, and I'm still coming to terms with that. So other than that, I'm fine.
Well, I can highly recommend it. I was very
changing from a BlackBerry to an iPhone.
I did it myself. I was very brand loyal to BlackBerry, but I'm afraid the Q10, which you've now got, you will hate it. You will dump it within 2 weeks.
I've been trying for 48 hours and it's just not working for me.
Well,
I've always liked the keyboard, but I mean, an iPhone is such a big step. Such a big step.
I think that's going to be a minor issue.
Would you give me a few tutorials? Would you help me out?
Happily do so. You won't regret it. Now, let's go straight to your calls. If you'd like to put a call to Ed Balls, 0345 6060 973. As I say, you can see us on lbc.co.uk as well. Alistair is in Chelsea. Hello, Alistair.
Hello, yes. I'm specifically Ed, and hello, Ed.
Morning, Alistair.
Hello.
Are you an iPhone or a BlackBerry person?
I'm neither, actually.
Really?
I'm a Galaxy person.
Oh, right. Does that have a keyboard or is it a touchscreen?
Well, it has a screen keyboard.
Right, let's get to the question. Alistair, what's your question?
Okay. Well done, Chelsea. You may or may not be familiar with, Ed, is a traditional... This is a question to do with mansion tax, first of all.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Is a traditional working class area. However, because of where it's located within the Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea, you cannot buy any property, any house anyway, a 2 or 3 bedroom house, probably even a 1 bedroom house, within £2 million. Okay, so therefore they're all going to come within your proposed tax. My concerns are twofold: is the impact on the individuals and the knock-on effect for the local community.
Sure.
And also the practicality. I should also say, by the way, I've actually worked as a valuer in the area, so I know how very difficult it is to value property. So my first question to you would be, how do you actually propose to value properties and assess whether they're worth less or more than £2 million?
Well, what we are planning to do, Alistair, is use a tax which has been put in place by George Osborne over the last couple of years, called the envelope properties tax. Have you had experience with that as a valuer?
A little bit, yes.
How have you found it?
Not very good.
I've never heard of this. What is it?
It's a tax which was introduced by George Osborne to stop companies avoiding tax by enveloping the property within a company.
Right.
So it's a tax avoidance thing. And he introduced it. It's a UK tax. It's called the envelopes property tax. And you pay tax if your property is worth more than £2 million. So it's actually very similar to the mansion tax that we've been talking about.
So are you saying there won't be any cost in valuation because it's already been done?
Well, what George Osborne has done is he's introduced a banded system, and it's a banded system based on self-valuation, so that if there's a band, say we've said the first band would be to £2 to £3 million. If you know your house is squarely in the middle of that, you're paying in that band, you'll just pay on your tax return that amount of mansion tax, which we've said, as you know, is £250 a month. If you think that you are just below £2 million, you could either just say, my house is worth £2 million, and then you would know that HMRC might come and value your property, or you could decide to get an independent valuation to confirm you're below £2 million, and therefore you would never then pay the mansion tax. If you thought that you were close to the borderline, you might get a valuation. If you were comfortably within the bands, which would be quite wide, then you would just self-value, and on that basis you would pay.
It's already sounding quite complicated.
Yeah, but we're talking here, Ian, about a small number of people in the country. There are very few parts of the country where anybody would pay.
No, it's a tax on London, that's what it is, isn't it?
Well,
effectively.
It's a tax on the highest value properties, which are disproportionate in London, but they're not entirely in London. Sorry, Alistair. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, may I just say, it would include every house in my direct area, which is a local working class area.
And sorry, look, I'm not an expert, Alistair. The working class area of Chelsea you're talking about is called?
World's End.
World's End.
Yeah.
And now within World's End, there are some people who will be in local authority or housing association rented properties.
Correct, a very high percentage.
There'll be some, there'll be some people who will be owners of their properties.
Correct.
People who are in renting a property. And as you said, that's a very substantial number. They won't be liable for the mansion tax because the mansion tax will be paid by the owner.
Most of the people who live there already, who probably aren't very rich, who've just seen their houses get richer because of other circumstances, they're going to end up paying it.
No, Ian, Alistair just said that a very large number of the people in World's End will be renting in local authority or housing association properties.
No, of course they won't.
So therefore, they don't pay it.
No, of course they don't.
So therefore, the working class people of that part of Chelsea and World's End who are renting.
Well, let me break it to you gently. Working class people own their own homes as well.
But if there is a working class person in that part of Chelsea who now owns a home over £2 million, they'll then be liable for the mansion tax. If they are a taxpayer with an income each year below £42,000, which means that they are basic rate or non-taxpayer, not a higher rate taxpayer, they'll be liable for no mansion tax in any year. All that will happen is that when they finally sell the property, they'll have to pay the mansion tax at that point.
Why is it,
may be, now, hang on, it may be there are some, what Alistair would call and you would call working class people who are also higher rate taxpayers in that part of London. If the house is worth over £3 million, they'll be paying more than £250 a month. But if they are a higher rate payer, with an over £2 million house in Chelsea, which they own, and their income is over £42,000, they'll have to pay £250. And I think most people... Let me make the point in. I think most people listening to your programme, the vast majority of whom have a property nowhere near £2 million, will think it's fair that people with that property over £2 million should pay.
It's the politics of envy. What you're doing is basically saying to all the people who are nowhere near this, sort of just saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter if a few rich people get slammed for this tax.
Well, look, you wanted to have a discussion about the non-renting, which we know is the minority, ordinary income person in Chelsea, and I'm saying they have to be a higher rate payer to pay anything.
The vast
majority of people in London don't have houses over £2 million. They don't think like Myling class. You can't get a garage for less than £2 million. And somebody with a house in Chelsea with a house of £2.5 million is currently paying a lot less as a proportion of their house in property tax compared to somebody with an average. Why should they pay lower tax?
Why is it that virtually all of the potential candidates for London Mayor have come on this programme and said that they think basically the mansion tax is not a good idea? Presumably they've all been knocking at your door on this.
Well, normally they come on and say that they would prefer it was done through the council tax instead, don't they?
Some of them.
Yeah. And I mean, there may be some candidates for London Mayor who don't think we should be asking people with properties worth over £2 million to pay any more tax at all, even though those people are substantially undertaxed compared to ordinary Londoners.
Even Diane Abbott, who's not exactly a fan of low taxation, she doesn't like the tax either.
Diane Abbott would prefer to do it through the council tax.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have any objection to rebanding the council tax, but neither major political party will go down that road because we all know where revaluation will lead.
Okay, well, so are you in favour of revaluation or not?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm worried if we go down the road of revaluation, one, it will take an enormous length of time and be hugely bureaucratically complicated. It may mean that your call, Alistair, would make a hell of a lot of money out of revaluing, but it would blight the system for a long time. Secondly, it would raise the spectre that people in London with houses of 1 million are going to pay this tax.
It is
and I am not
ridiculous,
proposing
though, that we are still having council tax values based on 1991 valuations. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
And part of our problem is that somebody with a house of £2.5 million in Chelsea, which they own, this working class person is actually paying 2.5 times less the council tax as somebody with an average house in London.
Are you seriously saying there are no working class people in Chelsea?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that, as Alistair said, there are many people in World's End on ordinary incomes who are going to be renting through a housing association or local authority. There may be some people who are basic rate taxpayers in that part of London who have property over £2 million.
There are, of course, council properties that probably are worth over £2 million.
Well, I think probably quite a lot of them have been snapped up by people who think it's quite easy to... Hang on, let me make the point, Ian. To jump on the bus at Chelsea or the river bus and pop down from their former council house flat in Chelsea in order to work in the city. And I'm really... quite relaxed about them paying £250 a month.
We may have another little word about why this is in the news. Well, no, because I've got to go to the news and travel, seriously.
But you can't interrupt every answer.
I haven't been interrupting you. I've been trying to help you clarify things.
Myling Class made a good point on Monday, which is we need to make sure that working class or pensioners on low incomes with high value properties aren't hit. And I have set out exactly how we will do that by making them not pay in year only when the house is sold.
We'll have another little word about Myling Class in a second. She might come through the door in a minute.
Is it class or
know.
class?
Class.
It depends what part of the country you're from, I think.
Where I come from, it's class. This is LBC. It's 5:16. Simon Conway is here with the news headlines.
Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls has told LBC Labour's plans for a mansion tax will affect the highest value properties, which are disproportionately in London. 3 police officers have been injured after student demonstrators in central London threw missiles. 2 people have been arrested and the demo has now dispersed. Controversial pickup artist Julian Blanc has had his visa application rejected. The American's been accused of having sexist attitudes towards women. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
Welcome to Graham's Home Tutorials. Changing your car wiper blades. This one's easy. First, find the thingamy-bob. Now, take the hoojamiflip, hold on to the what's-it, right? Twist the doodah and push the doofer. Ow!
Or just ask the experts at Halfords to do it for you. Buy a pair of replacement car wiper blades and we'll fit them on the spot for just $2.99. Halfords, open late 7 days a week. Check your local store for opening times.
I'm Chris Golds in the LBC Travel Centre. In the centre of town, still queues on all routes throughout Lambeth, Vauxhall, Victoria and Westminster, all because of this demonstration. The demonstrators have now combined again at Parliament Square. All the earlier closures, as I said previously, have lifted, but there are still restrictions around Parliament Square. They've still got barriers in place. And there are still serious queues on numerous routes, including on Vauxhall Bridge Road, Victoria Street, Lambeth Bridge Road and Victoria Embankment. As the situation continues to change, I'll keep you updated. The North Circular Road is queuing on both approaches to Uxbridge Road in Ealing, where the traffic lights aren't phasing properly. Also on the North Circular, it's queuing westbound between Waterworks Corner in Walthamstow and the Cooks Ferry interchange in Chingford, where a lane's closed for emergency repairs. Portsmouth Road in Thames Ditton is queuing in both directions towards an accident at Giggs Hill Road. And on the M1 northbound, that's still closed between junction 15A for Toaster and 18 for Rugby, and it will be closed until about 10 o'clock tonight for emergency repairs. Taking about 2 hours to get through that stretch. A couple of issues now on the tubes. The Victoria line has mine delays because of a signal failure, and the Piccadilly line also has mine delays after a signal failure at Acton Town. This just in on the Victoria line. Service is suspended between Victoria and Brixton, and there's mine delays on the rest of the line, all due to a signal failure at Brixton. So that's between Victoria and Brixton, currently suspended. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Avoid those delays by meeting online from anywhere.
Earlier this month, Richard Reed, co-founder of Innocent, shared his top business tips in association with BT One Phone, taking the desk phone mobile. If you missed out, don't worry, there's still another chance to see it. Visit lbc.co.uk to watch a video of Richard's tips and the chance to win a Samsung Galaxy Alpha phone and £500 for your business. BT One Phone, your office phone network on your mobile.
A new home can be full of nasty surprises. Oh, that's a utility bill. Always creeping up on you, that one. Oh no, that's the council tax. It's grown. Ah! That repair bill came out of nowhere. According to a recent Mars survey, 1 in 5 first-time buyers regretted buying their home. So before you buy, make sure you've planned for all your ongoing costs.
Boo!
The Money Advice Service. Free and impartial advice worth following.
118434. 118434. 118434.
What are you doing?
Shh, trying to remember a number. 118434.
Do you want to borrow my pen?
Brilliant, thanks. 118434.
Now, whenever you need a number, there's only one number you need to remember. 118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
At ATS Euromaster, we always try to keep our tyre prices low. But right now, we're going even lower. For a limited time only, we're offering a further £5 off per tyre across our Dunlop range when you buy online. Get an extra £5 off every Dunlop tyre online now at atseuromaster.co.uk. ATS, put us to the test. Conditions and exclusions apply.
2 extra hot skinny lattes.
Leave your skinny latte to go.
Doors to manual and cross-check.
And take in some relaxing cafe culture in the sunshine. Fly from London Southend to 5 European destinations from $29.99 one way with Flybe. Flying to Rennes, Groningen and Munster Osnabrück from the 5th of June and Antwerp and Caen Normandy from the 3rd of July. Groningen from $34.99. Visit flybe.com. Credit card charges apply.
If you run a business and you're near a computer, type the name of your company into Google now. Chances are everything you find will be good. But all it takes is one negative review and your reputation on any kind of digital and social media site can change just like that. Reputation.com can manage and improve your brand's image online to make sure potential customers find out about the good reputation you've worked so hard to build up. For a free report on your online reputation and to find out how we can help, visit Reputation.com.
Whether it's your business to serve something delicious,
open wide,
keep smiles bright, or make someone's day with a lovely bouquet, businesses all have one thing in common: cash flow. And at American Express, we can help you with it. With our Gold Business Card, you could get up to 54 days interest-free credit, plus your first year's annual card fee on us, saving you £125. Giving you great service is our business. Search Amex Small Business. 54 days interest-free if you spend on day one of your statement period and pay off your balance in full when due. See website for terms.
Discover exclusive TV series with Netflix. The only place to see House of Cards Season 2. Netflix. Get watching.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
22 minutes past 5. Ed Balls is here. You can watch us on lbc.co.uk. You can call us on 0345 6060 973. We've been talking about the mansion tax. It would be remiss of me not to ask, did you see the agenda with Tom Bradby and Myleene Klass giving your leader a pasting?
I really enjoy watching the agenda, but no.
But you didn't see it?
I didn't see it, no.
But you've heard about it?
Well, I was in Prime Minister's Questions today, where Ed Miliband brought it up in his question to the Prime Minister, so clearly it's been around for the last couple of days. So I know about it, yeah.
And what,
I have to
what
say,
do you make of the fact that he can get a pasting from a celebrity, and I mean, it was sort of slightly squirming to watch?
Well, look, I've not seen it. I think she probably kept saying to him, you can't buy a garage in where I live in London for less than £2 million, and I think probably most people in the rest of the country will think, a bit out of touch, really. I mean,
what do you make of the people who've been? I mean, a lot of your colleagues on Twitter have been having a real go at Myleene Klass in quite a nasty way, actually.
I have never done anything nasty on Twitter myself, and I get lots of nasty abuse, and there's one word which is kind of a step beyond. I only block people on the nasty word, so I think you should normally be able to conduct politics without being nasty. I've not heard any nastiness myself.
Rachel Reeves was on the programme yesterday, and she said, what planet is Myleene Klass on? But what do you make of the fact that actually this has sort of caught on, not just in the media, but among normal people? They've sort of seen the clip on YouTube or whatever, and it kind of buys into this narrative that Ed Miliband is not quite up to it.
I think if Myleene Klass is saying we need to make sure that poor pensioners don't pay the mansion tax, that's a good point, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. If she's saying, poor people like me, pop stars and celebrities can't pay this mansion tax because we can't buy a garage for less than £2 million, I think probably people on YouTube are watching it more to see, to peer through the pain and the window pane to stare at a celebrity looking completely out of touch.
I thought you meant Ed Miliband's pain. But anyway, Simon in Birmingham has got a text. He says, when Ed Miliband, when you went on the agenda, it came to light that you hadn't been for a drink with him for a while. Have you rectified that? When was the last time you went for a pint? Who paid? What was ordered?
Look, we're far too busy trying to win the general election to have time for pints.
So you've not been for a drink with him since? You haven't rectified it? It's just knowing other political leaders. I mean, Osborne and Cameron, they would go for a pint together or a glass of Chablis.
Do they? Which pub do they go to? Which pub do they go to for this pint?
I don't know, but,
Are you sure?
But they do go out socially, don't they?
Wasn't it because David Cameron left his kids in one?
Yeah, I'm not sure George Osborne was out. So you haven't been.
I've had a drink with Ed Miliband. I've had dinner with Ed Miliband, but we've not been to a pub.
When was the last time you had dinner with Ed Miliband?
Not for a few weeks. To be honest, my iPhone with my diary and my BlackBerry with my diary is not readily available to hand.
So was
I last chatted with Ed Miliband a few hours ago, and I see him most days.
What did you chat about?
What did we chat about? Miley in class.
You did?
Yeah, of course we did.
Did you? What did he say?
Well, because David Cameron made a reference to it in Primus's questions, and we both decided that the NHS was in such a mess under David Cameron that we had to get some more money in. This mansion tax was a really fair way to do it. Miling class didn't think it was a good idea, but probably, Miling class, who I like very much, may not be kind of, in touch and have a finger on the pulse of the nation on this one.
Why do I doubt that's actually what you did talk about? Anyway, let's go to Peter.
I asked him whether he used a BlackBerry or an iPhone, actually.
Oh, did you?
No, I didn't.
Let's go to Peter in Middleton. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Ian.
Hi there, Peter.
What's your question?
My question, I was from Middleton. You wanted to escape, we had a recent by-election in Middleton and Haywood.
I came up to a brewery in Middleton.
Not with Ed Miliband, though?
No, without Ed Miliband. What's the name of the brewery in Middleton?
There,
I didn't know it, although I pulled a pint. What's the name? It has about 100 pubs.
John Willilly's.
It was really good. They make good.
Right, let's get on to your question, Peter.
Good local beer.
Good local beer.
Well,
and did you see yesterday?
No. Let's get on to Peter's question.
Sorry.
Yeah, the question I want, the Prime Minister came up by election, and he did his best efforts to jolly up the electorate and raise support. Unfortunately, when it came to the crunch, Labour's majority, which was 6,000, was reduced 90%. They were 600 when the polls came in. He's obviously not connected and inspired with the people up here. They're questioning his weak leadership.
Yeah.
So, if you'd won the leadership back in 2010, do you think you'd have been doing a better job?
I think it's hard at the moment for all politicians to win these arguments, so I don't think it would make any difference who is the leader in any of the parties. But if you actually look at the three by-elections we've seen in the last month and a half, we had a tough by-election in Middleton and Haywood, but we held our vote from 2010. Our majority went down, actually, because the Tories collapsed and went to UKIP, but we won that, so it's a Labour MP. The Tories have had two by-elections in Clacton and in Rochester this week. They lost the first one from Tory to UKIP, and who knows, they may be about to lose the second one in a couple of days. So I've got to say, Peter, and Ian, actually, let me say to Ian and Peter, if you want to judge this on the track record of leaders in the last 3 weeks, you'd have to say David Cameron's the one who's losing MPs and losing by-elections, not Ed Miliband. He won it, Peter.
I can assure you, if the Tories lose Rochester and Strood, as I expect them to do, you won't find me wanting in criticism of David Cameron. However, over the last week, the narrative has all been about Ed Miliband's leadership, as you well know. And I think it's fatuous for you to say that it doesn't matter who leads a political party. Of course it does. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stood in the first place.
No, what I said was that all mainstream political leaders are under pressure at the moment.
That's true.
And that's true if it's David Cameron or Nick Clegg or Ed Miliband as well. And so Peter asked me about a different result from the leadership election, but the reality is, Peter, that was the result, and I've backed Ed Miliband, and I'm the Shadow Chancellor, and I'm trying really hard to make sure we get jobs for young people and save the NHS and keep us in the European Union, but reform it. And he's the leader, and I'm working closely with him. And I hope that we can repeat the win we had in Haywood and Middleton in other places across the country.
But not Rochester and Strood, which is a seat that you used to hold under slightly different, well, quite substantially different boundaries, to be fair. But your vote in all the polls has gone down by 12 to 15%. Now, that's not a good position for an opposition to be in 6 months ahead of an election.
Well, as you just said, in 2005, on these boundaries, Tony Blair would have lost this seat to the Conservatives. It's now one of the top Conservative seats. And what's happening in this by-election is that people are thinking to themselves, I'm going to vote UKIP rather than Tory. And that's what's going on. That's the dynamic. We've actually got a really good candidate. I've been down to support her.
Actually, you have got a good candidate. I'll agree with that.
But it's a two-horse race in this election, really.
But it shouldn't be. It should be a three-horse race.
In 2005,
the leading opposition party should be looking to win by-elections like this, and you know that.
Look, the sitting Tory MP defected to UKIP in a safe Tory seat, which we, as you said a moment ago, would not have won in 2005 on the new boundaries. We've got a very good candidate, but let's be honest, this is a UKIP-Tory fight in that seat. And if David Cameron loses this, it's a massive problem because he's got no chance of getting a majority or winning the next election if he's losing these seats.
Right, we
won Hayward and Middleton.
We are going to speed up the volume of calls in the next half an hour, I promise. I'm Ian Dale at Drive, LBC News Time, it's 5:30. Simon Conway has the news headlines.
The Shadow Chancellor has admitted to LBC Labour's plans for a mansion tax will mostly affect homes in London. Speaking to Ian, Ed Balls has defended the idea for a tax on those who live in homes worth more than £2 million to fund the NHS.
The vast majority of people in London don't have houses over £2 million. And somebody with a house in Chelsea with a house of £2.5 million is currently paying a lot less as a proportion of their house in property tax compared to somebody with an average. Why should they pay lower tax?
3 police officers have been injured after student demonstrators in central London threw missiles at them. 4 people have now been arrested. The demo was calling for an end to high tuition fees. A controversial American dating coach has been told he won't be allowed to enter the UK. Julian Blanc was due to hold coaching sessions, which have been criticised for encouraging abusive behaviour towards women. The Business News shares in Royal Mail have fallen 8% after a drop in half-year profits. In the 6 months to the end of September, they were down £218 million. It says Amazon's own delivery network has affected its parcels growth. Wage packets in the UK grew at their weakest level last year since 1997. The Office for National Statistics says average weekly pay in the 12 months to March was £1 higher than the previous 12. The Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee voted 7-2 to keep the base rate of interest on hold at 0.5%. Their minutes for November reveal an increasing concern about the potential for rising inflation. And the FTSE 100 closed down 12 points at 66.96.
LBC Business.
With Lex Autolease. Join the vehicle leasing revolution.
LBC weather staying cloudy tonight for London and the southeast. Some showers possible in the west, lows of 5 Celsius. Rain in Northern Ireland and Wales easing this evening. Mostly dry elsewhere across the UK. Tomorrow largely dry and cloudy and highs of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
I'm Chris Golds in the LBC Travel Centre. The aftermath of the demonstration is still being felt on routes throughout Lambeth, Vauxhall, Victoria and Westminster, and there are still a relatively small group of demonstrators at Parliament Square, meaning there are still some restrictions around the square. Looking at it on camera, it looks pretty solid, so best to avoid still if you can. The M40 slow heading out of London between Junction 2 for Beaconsfield and 4 for High Wycombe. That's because of an accident which is blocking a lane. The North Circular, that's queuing on both approaches to Uxbridge Road in Ealing, where the traffic lights aren't phasing properly, and the North Circular's also really crawling westbound between Waterworks Corner in Walthamstow and the Cooksferry interchange in Chingford after emergency repairs earlier. Portsmouth Road in Thames Ditton is closed in both directions towards an accident at Giggs Hill, and on the M1 northbound that's still closed between Junction 15A for Toaster and 18 for Rugby until about 10 o'clock this evening. So emergency repairs after an accident and a fuel spillage causing massive delays from Junction 15 for Northampton and on surrounding roads as well. You can expect delays of up to 2 hours there. On the M27 in Hampshire there's a lane closed after another overturned vehicle between Junction 1 for Cadenham and Junction 2 for Salisbury. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With Go-To Meeting. Up your game with a free 30-day trial. James O'Brien on LBC with cyberstreetwise.com.
Jamie Oliver facing some criticism for using chili pepper to discipline his daughter, and some people suggesting it's a big fuss about nothing. But if smacking is wrong, how can employing a chemical to burn your child's mouth be acceptable?
James O'Brien, weekday mornings from 10. Keep your business secure online with cyberstreetwise.com.
I'm out and about this week and I've come to meet Kate Lester, who's the Managing Director of Diamond Logistics, about how she's using the latest communications technology to improve her business. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Tell me more about the improvements you've made.
Sure. The main thing we did was to bring landlines and mobiles together onto the one system, and for that we had Vodafone OneNet Business recommended to us.
So what's that done for you?
Well, it's made a big impact on productivity because we're basically managing 10% more calls at least with the same amount of people.
And have the staff found it good to use?
Yeah, our team and drivers are better connected, so they're loving it, and the clients get a much better service.
In what way?
Well, basically we're more responsive, which is pretty much everything when you're a courier.
And what's been the effect on the overall business side of things?
Well, we've more than doubled our turnover in the last 12 months.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, now we're the UK's fastest growing courier network, so we're pretty chuffed with the changes we've made.
Search online for Vodafone OneNet Business today. Vodafone. Power to the save the dayers. Power to you. Terms and credit check apply. OneNet services are subject to a site suitability test.
If you run a business and you're near a computer, type the name of your company into Google now. Chances are everything you find will be good. But all it takes is one negative review and your reputation on any kind of digital and social media site can change just like that. Reputation.com can manage and improve your brand's image online to make sure potential customers find out about the good reputation you've worked so hard to build up. For a free report on your online reputation and to find out how we can help, visit Reputation.com.
Darling, what's wrong?
I missed a call. It was that big order, and when I called back, he'd already gone with another supplier.
Why? Why didn't we have e-receptionist answering and directing our calls? Avoid the horror of the missed call from just 30p a day with eReceptionist. Visit ereceptionist.co.uk for your free 30-day trial.
Free trial must be cancelled within 30 days to avoid fees.
This is Colin. As an on-call plumber, he needs his van to be ready at a moment's notice. That's why he leased it with Lex Autolease. It meant he was able to drive away a new van configured for the job, with optional servicing, maintenance, road tax, and breakdown cover included, saving him time and money that otherwise could have gone down the plug hole.
Join the Lex Autolease Leasing Revolution at leasingrevolution.com.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
5:36 here on LBC. You can watch us at lbc.co.uk. Ed Balls, the Shadow Chancellor, is here. 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to ask him a question, which is what Michael in High Wycombe wants to do. Hello, Michael.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, what's your question?
Hi there, Michael.
Hi, good evening. I'd just like to ask you, obviously, in the last couple of weeks, the government completely capitulated over the increased demand from the EU for the extra £1.7 billion of contribution. At the time, I think this was around November the 6th, 7th, somewhere around that time, you came on air and I saw you on several bits of different media stations.
Sure.
And you were right to denounce that that was just a complete capitulation, and Cameron and Osborne tried to fraudulently present their way out of it, but you did a nice job there of exposing what they're actually doing. But what intrigues me now is you've had a couple of weeks to have a think about it. What would you have done differently, and how much would you have paid?
Well, I think the first thing is, I think there was a piece in the Sunday Times about this at the weekend. We've not seen the full story of this because there's a separate and related budget negotiation going on, which last Friday, when all the tough budget discipline countries were voting for the tough line, the British government abstained last Friday, which was rather weird. I know, it's really unusual.
And they haven't explained it, have they?
Well, I think what's gone on here is that in order to get the interest deferred and to pay it later and to be able to kind of get this sorted out, I think George Osborne's done a deal, which is to go soft on the European budget. So I think there may be more to run on this. I think the answer to your question, Michael, is that if you come to these things that late, by that time, it's really hard to change the dynamic. And the fact is that, I know from my experience in the Treasury, people in the Treasury should have known when you get an ONS revision months ahead, you know that if the GDP gets revised up, there's going to be implications for your potential financial contributions. They should have been on this months ago. They should have got this into some kind of working group process, pre-finance minister's
level. But that's not George Osborne's fault, is it? That's the civil servant's fault.
Well, no, I think it's the Treasury's fault. I'm not necessarily blaming George Osborne. I think the Treasury should have been on this. I think he and his advisors, though, because he's got political advisors, ought to have spotted this when the ONS revision came out. If he only found out 2 days before the European Council, by that time, it was very, very difficult indeed to do anything about it. So I think the answer is you had to have been on this much earlier, trying to persuade people that the way this is being done is too clunky and unfair. So what do you think the truth is?
Do you think actually he did know a long time before, or that he was genuinely kept in the dark?
I think probably the Treasury messed up. And by the Treasury, I don't include necessarily George Osborne, but I would definitely include his political advisors as well as the officials. I know from my own time there, because I was there for quite a few years.
We remember fondly.
An alarm bell would ring when you saw those GDP numbers a month ago. They should have been on it.
And I suspect they would have thought, oh my God, imagine Gordon Brown's reaction to this if we don't tell him. And George Osborne hasn't got that fear factor, has he?
Look, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that once you leave it that late, you're scrabbling around. And the typical David Cameron, he does a sort of big, up the top of the hill, I'm not going to pay a penny, brackets, by 1st of December or whatever. And it turns out that he's paying exactly what he was always going to have to pay.
But he's kind of got away with it. And you have to say, well, isn't that your fault that he's got away with it? I mean, Michael's brought it up now, but I suspect most people listening to this programme thought, oh, yeah, I remember that. But it's something in the dim and distant past.
I think Michael was right to say that I was on TV quite a few days. We were in the House of Commons. But in the end, look, there's a by-election tomorrow in Rochester. And is the government on immigration, on the EU budget, on the European arrest warrant? Do people think they're handling Europe well? I think most people think it's a disaster.
We will see what happens in that by-election. Dexter
Thank you
is
for your
in
call,
Slough.
Michael.
Hello, Dexter.
Hello, good evening, Ian.
Hi, what would you like to ask?
Hi, Dexter.
Hello, Mr. Balls. How are you?
Fine, thanks. You all right?
I'm okay. Mr. Balls, I'd like to ask you, how do you feel knowing that you actually trailed Nigel Farage of UKIP in trusting of the economy in England?
Well, I think that there's lots of different polls, and what you've got to do, Dexter, is you've got to win the argument for the general election when people look at us in the months between now and then.
But you haven't won the argument so far. I mean, this Comrades poll shows David Cameron at 35% on trust with the economy, Nigel Farage at 18%, and you on only 13%. That must be a bit embarrassing for you.
Look, when it comes to the general election, people are going to ask this. Which party can save the NHS? Which party will get young people back to work? Which party's on the side of working people? And which party can make sure that we can balance the books in a fair way? I'm confident when we get to the general election, that's an argument we can win.
But you've been Shadow Chancellor
I don't think Nigel Farage is going to win that.
3 years, I think.
Yep.
If people haven't made up their minds about you positively in 3 years, how do you think they're going to change their minds in the next 5 months?
Look, in the run-up to the 1997 election, Gordon Brown was behind Ken Clarke on trust on the economy as well, on trust on tax. One of the things in opposition, until you get really close to the election, then you're always behind because people will say they've not seen enough yet, they don't want to make a judgment, they don't know. That's the way in which it goes. I'm focused on the general election, our manifesto, making sure that we can win the argument in the election campaign. I'm confident we can do that.
OK, let's go to Adrian in Chelmsford. Hello, Adrian.
Hi, good evening, Ian.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
Not too bad. Just finishing a day's work.
Yeah, good.
Mr. Red Balls, I'm a Romanian.
Yep.
Been in the UK for the 8 years starting now.
Yep.
Year number 8. All the debates that you, as a politician, not necessarily you,
yep,
about Eastern Europeans claiming benefits,
yep,
it makes us look like complete scumbags. And I want to ask you, why do you make it such a big deal? Even though I agree with restricting it, totally agree with that, but why do you make such a big deal out of it?
I think that
when it's such a small number of people.
I think that we've got to win the argument with the British people that staying in the European Union is a good thing for Britain, but we need to reform Europe to make sure that it's about growth and jobs and prosperity. And secondly, that migration into our country is important because we need skilled people. And we need to make sure that we've got people who can come and help work in our National Health Service and other parts of our economy, but that we can control it and make it work in a fair way. I think central to our welfare state has always been a view that people should make a contribution before they draw out from the welfare state. I think you're right that the vast majority of people who come from other countries come here to work and have a job. But I think it's right that we should say to people that if you come here without a job, unemployment benefit isn't going to be available. I think it's the way to show that this is about not allowing people to come here to claim benefits who haven't got a job, but to show that we can be open to people who will come and make a contribution.
Let's just bring John in Nebworth into this, because I think he's got a point he wants to make. John, what would you like to ask?
Hi there, John.
Hello?
Hi there, John. How are you?
Yes, not bad. How you doing?
Good.
Marvellous.
Right, I've just been asked to ask you a question, but I'd like to...
Who asked you that? Who asked you that, John?
One of the researchers on LBC.
Let's just get on with the question.
It must have been your question,
Let's
John.
just get on with the question.
Okay, my question is, having the responsibility of looking after the country at all levels,
Yep.
there seems to be a relinquished responsibility for housing.
Yep.
And it's commonly called social housing, which is a bit ugly, and there's a whiffage of snobbery, but millions of us grew up in council houses.
Yep.
Now, during your 13 years, you didn't build any. Is there any likelihood we will return to them grand old days where we looked after the working classes and provided good homes and not called them social housing like it's sub-working class and ugly?
Quick answer.
I've got loads of people in my constituency who live in council housing, social housing, in affordable rented accommodation in housing associations, and these are people who work hard and pay their taxes and deserve a good deal. We, at the end of our time in government, did start building some council houses. When we came in 1997, though, the big problem was we had thousands, millions of properties in the council house sector already built, which didn't have bathrooms, didn't have proper boilers, didn't have decent windows, and we decided the first priority was to make those homes decent, and we spent billions of pounds making houses decent, which hadn't been decent in the decades before under the Tories. I think you're right, John, that we didn't get the balance. No, I'm just saying, I think we didn't get the balance right. That by deciding to prioritising making existing houses decent, we didn't build enough houses in the first half of our government.
You didn't get housing policy right, you didn't get the economic policy right, you didn't get immigration policy right. Anything else you'd like to add to that list?
Well, look, we didn't join the single currency in 2003.
We agree that
which
was
is
a
probably
marvellous
one of the
thing.
most important decisions made in Britain in the last 50 years. Secondly, we made the Bank of England independent, which was a really, really good decision. Thirdly, we introduced a national minimum wage, which was a really good decision.
I'd ask if you wanted to add to the other list.
Hang on a sec. We also raised national insurance for the health service and got waits for a new hip down from 18 months to 18 weeks, and we introduced civil partnerships, which is another good reform in our country. So I would just like to say I'm really proud of many of the things Labour did in government, but grown-up people, when they didn't get everything right, say what they got wrong, and that's what I've done.
Ed Balls, thank you. We have 15 more minutes. 0345 6060 973. It's 5:46. Simon Conway has the headlines.
The Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls has admitted to LBC Labour's plans for a mansion tax on homes worth more than £2 million will mostly affect London. 4 people have been arrested at a demonstration by thousands of students in central London. 3 police officers were injured after missiles were thrown at them. American pickup artist Julian Blanc, who's been accused of having sexist attitudes towards women, has been banned from entering the UK. This is LBC. Your travel news is next.
An opportunity. All too often, it's something you recognise just after it's passed you by. You can take it or leave it, until the moment you wish you hadn't just missed it. Take our Mercedes-Benz approved used event, with 2 years free servicing and £1,000 finance deposit contribution at 9.9% APR representative. From the 21st to the 24th of November, you can drive away in the Mercedes-Benz you want. Or you can wait and see, if you don't mind seeing the car you'd love pass you by. Search Mercedes-Benz approved used. Participating retailers only. Offer on all approved used models over 90 days. Ends 24th of November 2014. Terms and conditions apply, subject to status. Mercedes-Benz Finance.
I'm Chris Goltz in the LBC Travel Centre. In the centre of town, there are still restrictions around Parliament Square, where a small group of demonstrators remain in place. However, traffic around Westminster, Lambeth and Victoria is returning to normal for this time of day. The M40, that's slow heading away from town between Junction 2 for Beaconsfield and 4 for High Wycombe. That's because of an accident which is blocking a lane. The North Circular Road is queuing on both approaches to Uxbridge Road in Ealing, where the traffic lights aren't phasing properly. And the North Circular is still queuing westbound between Waterworks Corner in Walthamstow and the Cooks Ferry interchange in Chingford after emergency repairs. Portsmouth Road in Thames Ditton is closed in both directions towards an accident at Giggs Hill Road, and on the M1 northbound that's still closed between junction 15A for Towcester and junction 18 for Rugby until about 10 o'clock this evening for emergency repairs after an accident and a fuel spillage. That's causing massive delays, as I've said, from junction 15 for Northampton and on surrounding roads as well, taking about 2 hours to get through there. And on the tubes, minor delays on the Piccadilly and Victoria lines after a signal failure earlier. Keeping you moving in extra travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC Travel.
With GoTo Meeting, work smarter and strike a work-life balance.
Weekday afternoons from 1 on LBC. Join Julia Hartley-Brewer with Lex Autolease.
Whether or not a disabled man in a wheelchair takes priority on public transport over a mum with a buggy. The shame I would have felt if I'd allowed that disabled man to not get on that bus. I would not have slept to this day. I would have been so mortally ashamed.
Julia Hartley-Brewer on LBC. Weekday afternoons from 1 with Lex Autolease. Join the vehicle leasing revolution.
Discover great entertainment with Netflix. Follow us on Twitter to hear about new TV shows and films first. Netflix. Get watching.
Next September, join Global's Make Some Noise for a once-in-a-lifetime adventure. Visit one of the 7 wonders of the world and trek through the Grand Canyon. Explore breathtaking landscapes and sleep under the stars, while all changing young lives here in the UK. For more details on how to sign up, go to makesomenoise.com/get-involved.
Growing steadily for 14 years, delivering cost-effective, flexible security for a wide variety of businesses. Ward Security are now recruiting more SIA licensed security officers, supervisors and managers throughout the country to continue that growth. Could you be one of them? Customer service experience is essential. And your first step? See ward-security.co.uk and click on careers.
Have you ever thought about investing in property? Do you need a helping hand to get started? Well, my name is Jill Fielding, and my company, Fielding Financial, are holding free Introduction to Property Investing seminars in London, which you may wish to go along to. To find your nearest free property investing seminar and book your free place, visit askjillfielding.com or call 0800 999 7718. That's askjillfielding.com or call 0800 999 7718.
Oh, come on! We've moved precisely 6 inches in the last quarter of an hour. Every morning it's the same. Same jam, same cars, same... No! Don't let him in. What are you doing? It's your right of way. Ugh! Why do we do it?
I don't know, but you don't have to.
Huh? Who said that?
With GoToMeeting by Citrix, you can say goodbye to bumper and hello to face-to-face meetings wherever you are. Just download the online meeting software and start saving time and money now. Visit gotomeeting.co.uk for a free 30-day trial.
A long time ago, when I was a cat, treats seemed so far, far away. But now I'm a dog. I get out there and grab them.
Discover a world of tickets, offers and experiences, plus unlimited calls, texts and 2 gig of data in Rocket Speed 4G for only £20 a month with an O2 SIM-only deal. Be more dog. Search O2 SIM-only.
Tariff accepted to RPI calls to send a UK mobiles and landlines. Terms of contract apply. Check o2.co.uk.
If you're an innovative small business owner, you could be missing out on thousands of pounds of help from the government, £46,000 on average. Why? Put simply, the government want companies who are spending time and money improving their business to claim cash back for innovation. Rift are specialists in preparing claims for software development, design, engineering and manufacturing. To find out from Rift if your business is eligible, visit innovationreward.co.uk. That's innovationreward.co.uk.
Smoke alarms need monthly testing and an annual battery change. Look after your smoke alarm so it can look after you. You wouldn't carry 3 people around all day, so make sure your mains outlets aren't carrying too many appliances. You could blow a fuse or worse.
It's easy for fires to start. A smoke alarm will alert you in seconds if it's got a working battery. So remember the drill. Get it, install it, check it. It could save someone's life.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
It's 5:53. Ed Balls is with us. You can watch us at lbc.co.uk. I just want to have a quick word about wages, because it's been revealed today that median pay for full-time workers went up by just £1 in the year to April to £518 a week. That's the smallest growth since 1997. Open goal, shoot.
And if you adjust it for inflation, it's actually fallen. People are worse off compared to 2010 because prices have been rising faster than wages. And, you had Nick Clegg yesterday said that the coalition's fixed the economy. You've got David Cameron and George Osborne saying our economic plan has worked. And people are worse off and getting worse off. They've been, for the last few years, month on month on month. And what I want is an economy which works for working people. And that means an economy where ordinary people on ordinary income see their wages rising faster than prices. I think it might take a change of government to deliver that.
Do you not think, though, that people are starting to feel more positive about things? They're starting to feel a little bit better off. They see the statistics coming out showing that actually wages are now increasing slightly faster than inflation, very slightly. I completely admit that. Growth is sort of 2.5–3%. They look at other countries and think, well, actually, they haven't done too badly.
Well, that isn't what the polls say. The polls say that there is a small minority of people.
So you believe these polls, but not the ones we were talking about earlier?
I think, no, because I see it in my own constituency as well. Most people in my constituency will say things haven't got better or they've got worse. Only 25% of people around, only a quarter of people say things are getting better. Now, I want things to get better, and we need that. And after all these years where incomes are being squeezed, but I think most people know that the economy's got to change for the future. We need more reform in our banks. We need to make sure we do more to invest in skills for people coming out of schools, more apprentices. We need our universities to be doing more engineering degrees. We need to back our companies in manufacturing. I think at the moment that's not happening. It's not happening enough, and that's why people are still worse off.
What do you think about the living wage? Because Boris Johnson has said today that Arsenal Football Club should be giving at least the minimum wage to people that they employ. Apparently they're not. Chelsea do. Did I say minimum? I meant living wage. Chelsea apparently do the same. There's no point in the living wage unless it's enforced, is there?
Well, we have a national minimum wage, which is the legally enforced minimum wage, and we're proposing to raise that to £8 an hour. But over and above that, there's a campaign for a living wage, which is different in different parts of the country, higher in London, because the London wage is bound to be higher than the national minimum wage because of what's going on in London in the economy. And I think it's right, we say, that those companies and businesses who can afford to do more than national minimum wage should. Now, when you look at Arsenal and Chelsea, these football clubs paying these massive multi-thousand-pound a week, a day salaries to the top footballers, do you think they can pay the living wage to their staff? I'd say so.
OK, let's go to Ellis on the M25. Ellis, hello.
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. Balls.
Hi, Ellis. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Been sat in the lay-by for an hour to speak to you.
Really? I was about to say, is the traffic moving? But unfortunately, it's probably moving past you.
Let's make it worth listening. Ellis, what's your question?
It's regarding the NHS and the framework contract, if you're aware of that.
Explain a little bit more.
The framework contract is a contract that's put in place to supply the NHS with goods and services over a period of time.
Yep.
I used to work for a company. We manufactured a product. I joined the company after our company was unsuccessful in negotiations.
All right, Ellis, look, we're nearing the end of the hour. I'm afraid I've got to ask you to put your question.
Okay, so the question is, if costs reduce during that framework contract, NHS trusts, and I spoke to every NHS trust in the UK, are tied into that contract. How can you justify the costings?
So you're saying that if you sign a long-term contract, you do it badly, and the costs have gone down, then the private company ends up making a bigger profit, and is that fair?
To the detriment of the NHS, and you are unable to sell your product to the NHS, even though you are saving it money because they are tied into a contract.
I think the thing I would say is that, Ian, I don't think that we should be privatising the NHS, but I think the NHS is always going to have to make contracts with suppliers to bring in different products and to work with the private sector in different ways. It needs skilled people who can strike good deals, and if they're striking bad deals, that's a problem. But I think probably more than that, what we've got to do is make sure we've got an NHS which is really working for the public, getting waiting times down, making sure that it works for the staff but also the patients. And I fear at the moment it's going backwards, and I'd like to see the NHS improved. I don't think that's going to happen under David Cameron and George Osborne. I think we need a change of government. I think we need a mansion tax in order to get more money coming in. And I hope the NHS in the future can thrive and do well, and make sure that your company and other companies can have good relationships with the NHS for the future.
We're not going on to the mansion tax again. That way lies madness. Jane in Grimsby says, Julian Blanc has been banned from the UK. Should he be? We're going to be talking about this in the next hour.
Right. Well, I've seen what he's been saying. The reason why he got banned in Australia, going around trying to encourage men to be violent and sort of use that as a pulling technique. I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and I'm glad he's not coming in the country.
A final question from me. As a former children's minister, how shocked are you by some of the revelations that are coming out at the moment, especially on this Westminster paedophile ring, which people say is linked to some homicides?
Well, I've no idea what the truth of that is, but there's been such bad news and bad stories over the last couple of years from Jimmy Savile onwards that nothing would surprise me now, and I hope the police can get right to the bottom of this. And if terrible things happened 20 or 30 years ago, we've got to get to the bottom of that. We've also got to make sure children are safe today. I obviously was very involved in the Baby Peter case in Haringey, and that was a terrible failure of management and leadership there. But some of the things which have come out since as to what was happening in Haringey and the Great Ormond Street Hospital are also some real questions of concern as well. So we need to look at the past, but the most important thing is let's make sure that today and for the future our children are safe, and that if there's abuse or if there's risk, it's being properly investigated. Social workers and the police and schools and GPs and all of us working together and taking our responsibilities seriously. We've got to be a country where children can thrive and do well. And I hope that can be the case for the future.
It's just got to the point, though, where you never know what's coming next. And I don't know about... I mean, you're a father, I'm not. But I'm so shocked by some of the things that are being revealed nowadays, things that I would never have thought possible in a month of Sundays.
I think you have to separate things. First of all, there's some things which happened 10, 20, 30 years ago when attitudes were different. There's things which happened 10 or 20, 30 years ago which may have been brushed under the carpet even though they were terrible and illegal and wrong. There's also some individual failures of management and leadership in some parts of the country and some wider systemic problems like we saw in Rotherham. These are all coming together and it's like a perfect storm. Jimmy Savile, the Westminster ring, what happened in Rotherham, what happened in Haringey. And you've got to separate these out and treat them all separately. Let's investigate the past. Let's make sure there's lessons to be learned from recent failures, but let's make sure we all work together, champion the role social workers play, and let's keep our children safe for the future.
Do you feel there's more to come?
Look, what do you think? I think so, don't you? I fear so. I mean,
do,
that's how it feels at the moment.
Well, and partly for a good reason, because people are more prepared to actually speak openly about these things now and go to the authorities. So that can only be a good thing.
I was just reading this morning on the on one of the websites the story about Bill Cosby, massive iconic American star. It turns out now that many women are coming forward and talking about terrible things. And I don't know the truth of that, but I do think...
have to say he's denying it all.
He's denying it. I don't know the truth about it. I'm not making an allegation. I'm just saying many women feel a confidence to speak out. Yeah. Although, as one of the points was made, I saw today, the whistle was blown by a man and now women are speaking up. But when women were speaking up before that male comedian, they were being ignored. Maybe we need to listen to children and women more in our society.
Well, that's a good note to end on. Ed Balls, thank you very much. We will be seeing you once more for a phone-in before Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. This is LBC. It's 6:01.
I'll bring you in this spy.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading